Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna and welcome to another lecture from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I just need to adjust some technical things. So I hope you're all well. We are finally starting a new chapter, chapter 5 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, which is entitled The Glories of Lord Nityananda, Balarama, which indicates actually that Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda are the same person. And as we can see from the chapters that we dealt with and that we will deal with in the future, what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is doing now, he's introducing Panchatattva. So this is God who is present in 5 features, and each feature will be described. So today we're talking about Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram is very much connected with the spiritual world because it is considered that he maintains everything with his energy. So therefore, we will describe and we will talk about the spiritual world, which is very nice, and we will emphasize a little bit about Vaikuntha planets because not much is said about Vaikuntha planets. There are some descriptions, but I like the descriptions that I found in the book of Sanatana Goswami, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where there are more details. So we're going to refer to that part as well, because sometimes we will see from the descriptions in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there's a certain description of the residents of Vaikuntha. And we just say, okay, these living entities who are there, they actually look like Vishnu. And that's true. They do have a bluish complexion and they have 4 arms and many other things. Actually, the only difference between them and Lord Vishnu is that Lord Vishnu has a Srivasa mark on his chest and a Kaustubha jewel. So that's the only, that's the only indicator how you can recognize Lord Vishnu compared to other residents. But they also look like, they also have other forms. And we're going to talk about that as well. I will first of all, let's see, there's a nice introduction to the chapter, which describes the whole creation, because it describes the material creation and the spiritual creation. So what I did for you, if you have time, of course, so that you can grasp what we are going to talk about. Unfortunately, I cannot use Zoom because somehow I get blocked on Facebook. So otherwise I would show you pictures, but instead of that, if you go to the Facebook page of Bhakti Yoga Center, you can find pictures of the spiritual world and the material world, and you can then take a look at it, or you can Google it also. It's called Goloka chart. So you can take this picture and then follow what we are going to describe and what we are going to talk about. And it's nice because then you can actually visualize what we're going to talk about, because sometimes it sounds like a theory, but it is very important that we know about the existence of that world, and how actually everything that exists in the material world is just a perverted reflection, like copy-paste of the spiritual world, but in a wrong way. So let's start first to describe, let's read actually the introduction. But yes, of course, before I start, I would like to sing a mantra for blessings, like invocation of the Lord and his associates. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. I have my Gorni ties in front of me, so when I sing this, I always look at them, asking for their blessings. So let's start. So this chapter is chiefly devoted to describing the essential nature and glories of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So what you have to understand is, like, I hope you followed the previous lectures. So in Chaitanya Lila, everything is connected with Krishna Lila. So when we were talking about the external reasons for appearance, or external and internal reasons for appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we were mentioning Krishna Lila, we were mentioning Radharani. We were describing who Krishna actually is and who Radharani really is. And then we said that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combination of Lord Shri Krishna and Radharani. He is that same Krishna who incarnated 5,000 years ago and who decided to take the mood of Srimati Radharani, and therefore he appeared in a golden form. So that's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in short, that we described in many, many details. So now we're going to talk about Lord Nityananda. And originally, Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram, who is the first expansion of Lord Krishna, and who is actually the same as Krishna in everything except in his form. So Lord Krishna has a bluish complexion, blackish bluish complexion, and Lord Balaram has a whitish complexion. So that's the only reason, according to the scriptures, that I found that is the difference between two of them. And he is considered to be the servitor of Godhead, which means that even though he is considered the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the best servitor of Lord Krishna. And everything that he does, actually he does for the service of the Lord. He maintains all the spiritual and material worlds. It will be described in these verses that there are 4 types of expansions in which he serves the Lord. And I will describe that in detail a little bit later on. But that's the reason why we will describe actually everything when describing Lord Balaram, because Lord Balaram, with his energy, actually, he is everything, because everything is his energy by which he serves the pastimes of the Lord. So beyond the limitation of this material world, there is a spiritual world, which is called Paravyoma, which has many spiritual planets. So Paravyoma means spiritual world. So this spiritual world has many spiritual planets, the supreme of which is called Krishna Loka. So if you want to look at the picture, you can see that on the top there is Krishna Loka, in the middle there are Vaikuntha planets, and below there is a material world. So in this Krishna Loka, which is the highest planet, so the highest mandala or the lotus flower, it is consists of 3 divisions, which are known as Dvaraka, Mathura, and Gokula. In that above, the personality of Godhead expands himself into 4 plenary portions: Krishna, Balaram, Pradyumna, who is considered the transcendental Cupid, and Aniruddha. They are known as the original quadruple forms. In Krishna Loka, so the highest top planet in the spiritual world, there is a transcendental place known as Shvetadvipa or Vrindavan. Below Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, are the Vaikuntha planets. On each Vaikuntha planet, a 4-handed Narayan, expanded from the first quadruple manifestation, is present. The personality of Godhead, known as Sri Balaram in Krishna Loka, is the original Sankarshan, and from this Sankarshan expands another Sankarshan called Mahasankarshan, who resides in one of the Vaikuntha planets. By his internal potency, Mahasankarshan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky. So this Mahasankarshan, an incarnation of Lord Balaram, he is responsible for maintenance of the spiritual world, because he actually creates everything in the spiritual world by his energy. So everything is his expansion. So this Mahasankarshan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky, where all the living beings are eternally liberated souls. The influence of the material energy is conspicuous there by its absence. On those planets, the second quadruple manifestation is present. Outside of the Vaikuntha planets is the impersonal manifestation of Sri Krishna, which is known as Brahmaloka. On the other side of Brahmaloka is the spiritual Karana Samudra, or causal ocean. The material energy exists on the other side of the causal ocean without touching it. In the causal ocean is Mahavishnu, the original Purusha expansion from Sankarshan. Mahavishnu places his glance over the material energy, and by a reflection of his transcendental body, he amalgamates himself within the material elements. So basically, this is the description of the whole creation in short. And if you would like to know the details of everything that is spoken here, you can find it in the second and the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. As the source of material elements, the material energy is known as pradhana, and as a source of manifestation of the material energy, it is known as Maya. But material energy is inert, in that she has no independent power to do anything. She is empowered to make the cosmic manifestation by the glance of Mahavishnu. Therefore, the material energy is not the original cause of the material manifestation. Rather, the transcendental glance of Mahavishnu over material nature produces that cosmic manifestation. So it is quite interesting when you think about it, when there is a description of creation. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami starts with the spiritual world. Why? Because the seed of the material creation comes from God, from the spiritual world. And Mahavishnu is one of the incarnations of God, and actually he's an incarnation of Lord Balarama. So only by his glance on the inert matter, the creation actually takes place. So the cause of life is not matter, but spirit. Mahavishnu again enters every universe as the reservoir of all living entities, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So if you look at the poster that I posted on the Facebook page, you can see that below there is a picture of the material universe. And you can see that there is a Mahavishnu who is lying on the causal ocean, and from him emanate the material universe. They look like bubbles because they come from the pores of Mahavishnu. And they manifest as he exhales. And when he inhales, then there is a destruction of the material universes. And then the picture takes one bubble, which is a representation of one universe. And in this universe, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu enters, and he sits on the Garbha ocean. And from his navel, a lotus flower sprouts, where the first living entity is born, and that is Lord Brahma. And from this Garbhodakashaya Vishnu expands Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, the super soul of every living entity. So that's the third feature of Lord Krishna, or actually the expansion of Lord Balarama in the material world. That is the Krishna that every living entity carries in its heart. We also. So that's the manifestation of the super soul. And he's called Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. It is also described how Garbhodakashaya Vishnu also has his own Vaikuntha planet in every universe, where he lives as the super soul or supreme controller of the universe. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu reclines in the midst of the watery portion of the universe and generates the first living creature of the universe, Brahma. The imaginary universal form is a partial manifestation of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. On the Vaikuntha planet in every universe is an ocean of milk. So when they mention the Vaikuntha planet in this case, it is a Vaikuntha planet that is situated in the material universe. So on the Vaikuntha planet in every universe is an ocean of milk, and within that ocean is an island called Shvetadvipa, where Lord Vishnu lives. Therefore, this chapter describes two Shvetadvipas, one in the abode of Krishna and the other in the ocean of milk in every universe. So if you ever read the story about how Lord Krishna actually incarnated 5,000 years ago, then you would know that the earth was overburdened by so many sins that were committed by demoniac personalities, and therefore, in a form of a cow, she approached Lord Brahma and asked for his help. And then Lord Brahma, along with other demigods, came to this Shvetadvipa, which is a Vaikuntha, which is a Vaikuntha in a material world, and on the shores of the Milk Ocean, he spoke the prayers to Lord Vishnu and asked him to help and to incarnate. And by these prayers, Lord Krishna manifested in this material world. And it is said how this Shvetadvipa exists in the material creation, but also exists in the spiritual world. So it is said that Shvetadvipa, in the abode of Krishna, is identical with Vrindavan Dham, which is the place where Krishna appears himself to display his loving pastimes. In the Shvetadvipa, within every universe, is a Shesha form of Godhead who serves Vishnu by assuming the form of his umbrella, slippers, couch, pillows, garments, residence, sacred thread, throne, and so on. So sometimes when we read something like that, it can be a little bit bewildering, like how this Ananta Shesha expands and how he serves the Lord in so many things, like being the shoes, the umbrella, the bed, and so on. But this is the energy of Lord Balaram. That's how he serves Lord Krishna. Only pure things can touch Lord Krishna. Therefore, everything that is connected with Krishna in the sense of serving him is always of the same quality as Lord Krishna, and usually it's a manifestation of Lord Lord Balaram. So Lord Baladev in Krishna Loka, or Lord Balaram, is Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu is the original Sankarshan, and Maha Sankarshan and his expansions as the Purushas in the universes are plenary expansions of Nityananda Prabhu. So this is the secret of who Lord Nityananda actually is, that he is Lord Balaram, and that he performs so many tasks actually for the service of Lord Krishna. In this chapter, the author has described the history of his leaving home for a personal pilgrimage to Vrindavan. So not only will Lord Nityananda be described, but Lord Nityananda is very much connected to the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because he was the one who gave the orders to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in that sense, when he glorifies Lord Nityananda and when he reveals who he actually is, he also tells a story of how he is connected with Lord Nityananda and how he received the order from him. So that's why in this chapter it is described that the history of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's leaving home for a personal pilgrimage to Vrindavan, and he is achieving all success there. In this description, it is revealed that the author's original paternal home and birthplace were in the district of Katwa, in the village of Jamatapura, which is near Naihati. Krishnadas Kaviraj's brother invited Sri Minaketana Ramadasa, a great devotee of Lord Nityananda, to his home. But a priest named Gunarnava Mishra did not receive him, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's brother, not recognizing the glories of Lord Nityananda, also took sides with the priests. Therefore, Ramadas became sorry, broke his flute, and went away. This was a great disaster for the brother of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. But on that very night, Lord Nityananda Prabhu himself graced Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in a dream and ordered him to leave on the next day for Vrindavan. So this is in short what we are going to discuss in this chapter 5 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is entitled The Glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. So first, what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami does when he begins the chapter is that he offers his obeisances. So he says that, "Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity." So whenever you would like to say a prayer to Lord Nityananda, it's very good to take it from this chapter. And then he says, "All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Dvaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have described the glory of Sri Chaitanya in the first 6 verses. Now, in 5 verses, I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. So he is the first expansion of Lord Krishna, and therefore he is considered his second body. And as we said, he has the same opulence as original Krishna and all the qualities as original Krishna, but the only difference is that he has a different form. Lord Krishna is bluish in complexion, and Lord Balaram is whitish. So it is described that these two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. So Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. And then it is revealed how that original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. May Shri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshanaga, and the Vishnus, who lie on the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk, are his plenary portions, and the portions of his plenary portions. So, if you have Gauri ties and you're second initiated, when you actually worship your deities, then when you meditate on the form of the deity that you worship, you meditate on the form of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. When you meditate on the form of Lord Chaitanya, then you say that he is the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, and may he be transcendentally situated in the innermost cores of your heart, resplendent like the molten gold, and he has come in this age of Kali to reveal what no other incarnations has revealed before, and that's the most elevated relationship one can have with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the relationship of conjugal love. So that's the prayer we offer to Lord Chaitanya. And when we meditate on the form of Lord Nityananda, we actually meditate on this verse. And it is described, actually it will be described in the verses that will follow, how he, Lord Balaram, who is the same as Lord Nityananda, he has five types of expansions in which he serves the Lord, and these are actually mentioned in this verse. So I'm sorry for the noise, but somebody is ringing and I'm not going to answer to it because I'm not expecting anyone, but it might be a little bit noisy. So Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshan. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. So these forms will be described now. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. And it is described how he expands himself in 5 forms. Mahasankarshan, which we said that actually Mahasankarshan is responsible for maintenance of the spiritual world. Then he expands himself as Karanodakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. We said that Karanodakashaya Vishnu is the Vishnu who lies on the causal ocean, and through whose pores the material universes emanate. And then in each of these universes, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu enters, and he maintains the universe. And then Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, as a supersoul, enters in each and every living entity and each and every atom of the material universe and sustains it. And then there is a 5th type of incarnation or form of Lord Balaram in which he serves Krishna, which is called Shesha. And this Shesha is called Ananta. And Ananta means unlimited. And this is just for a reflection. So Shesha, Ananta, unlimited. And he's called that way because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. So you have to think about it a little bit. It is mentioned in the scriptures how the incarnations of God, they're unlimited. And whenever there is a manifestation of the incarnation of Godhead, there is also a manifestation of his associates, of his paraphernalia, or his abode in a way. Sorry, and other stuff. So here comes Lord Balaram in the form of Shesha or Ananta, unlimited, who can actually follow the Lord in all his pastimes, in all his Lilas, in all his incarnation, and serve him in so many various ways, of which some ways are that he's his shoes, he's his umbrella, he's his bed, and so on. So this is the greatness of Lord Balaram, how he serves. And then it is said that Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balaram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. So he's always with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he always serves him. So this Lord Balaram, or Lord Nityananda, in all the forms he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balaram is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundar. So this is what is the conclusion of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And then he prays again. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, who is known as Sankarshan in the midst of Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulence and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. And then the whole description of the spiritual world will start. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, beyond the material nature lies a realm known as Paravyoma, the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes, such as the 6 opulences. That Vaikuntha region is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It is the residence of Lord Krishna and his incarnations. In the highest region of that spiritual sky is a spiritual planet called Krishna Loka, and this Krishna Loka has 3 divisions, Dwaraka, Mathura, and Gokula. Shri Gokula, the highest of all, is also called Vraja, Goloka, Shvetadvipa, and Vrindavan. Like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokula is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It expands above and below, without any restrictions. So, even though what is described here is something like a dham, like a place of the Supreme Lord where he resides, even though it is described that it is in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada stresses in Chaitanya Charitamrita how this same place where Krishna performs his pastimes is actually present on earth. And he says, actually quoting Srila Jiva Goswami, that the abodes of Godhead in the material world, such as Dwaraka, Mathura, and Gokula, so this exists here on this earth. He says that these are facsimiles representing the abodes of Godhead in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Dham. The unlimited spiritual atmosphere of that Vaikuntha Dham is far above and beyond the material cosmos. So now he gives confirmations how this spiritual world and the abode there is very real. And then he says, while chanting the mantra, one should always remember the spiritual world, which is very extensive and full of desire trees that can yield anything one desires. Below the Vaikuntha region is the potential material energy, which causes the material manifestations. The places of pastimes of Lord Krishna, such as Dwaraka, Mathura, and Vrindavan, eternally and independently exist in Krishna Loka. They are the actual abodes of Lord Krishna, and there is no doubt that they are situated above the material cosmic manifestation. The abode known as Vrindavan or Gokula is also known as Goloka. The Brahma Samhita states that Gokula, the highest region of the kingdom of God, resembles a lotus flower with thousands of petals. So if you look at the pictures that I've posted on our Facebook page, you can see that the topmost abode, which is called Krishna Loka, looks like a lotus flower. So it is described in the scriptures that it looks like that, therefore it is manifested in that way on the picture, and it is a lotus flower with thousands of petals. The outer portion of that lotus-like planet is a square place known as Shvetadvipa. In the inner portion of Gokula, there is an elaborate arrangement for Sri Krishna's residence with his eternal associates such as Nanda and Yashoda, That transcendental abode exists by the energy of Sri Baladev, who is the original whole of Shesha or Ananta. So, again, why the spiritual world is mentioned? Because Lord Balarama maintains it. He is responsible for it. Then to continue, the Tantra also confirms this description by stating that the abode of Sri Anantadeva, a plenary portion of Baladeva, is called the Kingdom of God. Vrindavan Dhama is the innermost abode within the quadrangular realm of Shvetadvipa, which lies outside of the boundary of Gokula Vrindavan. So there are many more descriptions, and it will be described how these descriptions are actually possible. That's also very interesting to know. So then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that even though these abodes, they exist in the spiritual world, that abode is manifest within the material world by the will of Lord Krishna. It is identical to that original Gokula. They are not two different bodies. So in that sense, we are very lucky, because we can travel to India and we can visit these places. And especially now, there is a holy month of Kartik, which is a month of Srimati Radharani, because she gives her mercy fully in this month, and whatever little we do in our devotional service towards Lord Krishna in this month, she magnifies it, which actually means that even if the only thing that we do is just to offer a lamp to Lord Damodar in this month, we are actually relieved of all the sins that we have accumulated in I don't know how many lifetimes. So devotees who know about Vrindavan, they know that if they go to Vrindavan in this month of Kartik, then the benefit is even greater. Than even though Vrindavan can be seen as a physical place and also as a state of consciousness, but nevertheless, because very often we lack Vrindavan consciousness, therefore to be physically present in a place called Vrindavan, which is non-different from the Vrindavan of the spiritual world, definitely helps us in our spiritual life and purifies us. So it's very nice to know that these places, they still exist, and they are put there as a mercy of the Lord. When he came here 5,000 years ago to perform his pastimes, he left his places for us to worship them and cherish them. And thanks to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis, who were direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these places were again revealed, because they were hidden in a way, because time, it deteriorates things and makes things hidden. So they are responsible for revealing it again to the world, and especially all the acharyas that followed after the 6 Goswamis, and especially Srila Prabhupada, who brought the teachings of Vrindavan consciousness to the Western world. And therefore he wanted to make Vrindavan and Mayapur, who is considered non-different from Vrindavan, he wanted to make it accessible to all the living entities in this world. So that's the mercy of a devotee. And also it just confirms the relevance of the Holy Scriptures, in which we can find out this information and how everything is connected actually with our spiritual life. So, and then it is described how in this Vrindavan, which is manifested in the material world, the land there is a touchstone, Chintamani, and the forests are abound with desire trees. Material eyes see it as an ordinary place. So even if we go to India and even if we visit Vrindavan, that doesn't mean we will see Vrindavan. We have to have the eyes to see Vrindavan. And I don't know if, here in this purport it is described how a person can actually see Vrindavan. So let's see. Let's actually read the whole purport. We have 10 more verses, and then I will also read from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Beautiful verses, and if you have a little taste, you will love it. So, by the grace of the Lord, these Dhammas and He Himself, meaning Krishna, can all be present simultaneously without losing their original importance. Only when one fully develops in affection and love of Godhead can then he see those Dhammas in their original appearance. So only if we develop prema, only if we develop love towards Krishna, then we will see Vrindavan with the spiritual eyes. We will actually see what Vrindavan really looks like. But if we don't have love towards Krishna, then we can only see Vrindavan through the material eyes, and we won't see Chintamani or desire trees, as it is described in this verse. So, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, a great Acharya in the preceptorial line of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has said for our benefit that one can perfectly see the Dhammas only when one completely gives up a mentality of lording it over material nature. One's spiritual vision develops proportionally to one's giving up the debased mentality of unnecessarily enjoying matter. A diseased person who has become diseased because of a certain bad habit must be ready to follow the advice of the physician, and as a natural sequence, he must attempt to give up the cause of disease. The patient cannot indulge in the bad habit and at the same time expect to be cured by the physician. This actually means that if you don't follow the 4 regulative principles, which means that you don't eat meat, fish or eggs, if you have to not indulge in illicit sex, not indulge in gambling or speculation, and not indulge in intoxication, and chant the mantras and perform devotional service, and only by doing that, which is prescribed by the physician, which is actually a spiritual master, only then you will be able to see through purification the abode of Vrindavan, even in this world. So, the living being is a spiritual spark. That's what we are. As spiritual as the Lord Himself. The only difference is that the Lord is great and the living being is small. Qualitatively, they are one, but quantitatively, they are different. Therefore, since the living being is spiritual in constitution, he can be happy only in the spiritual sky, where there are unlimited spiritual spheres called Vaikunthas. A spiritual being conditioned by the material body must therefore try to get rid of this disease instead of developing the cause of the disease. So, as much as we detach ourselves from the understanding that we must be the enjoyer, that much we will be able to see the spiritual abode and Krishna even in this world. So it's only about the matter of consciousness, and that's why sometimes when we talk about Vrindavan, we are talking about a place here in this earth, in India, but also what is most important is to have a Vrindavan consciousness, and that means seeing Krishna everywhere. So that's actually a nice conclusion and very important instruction for our spiritual life. And then he says that, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, but with the eyes of love of Godhead, one can see its real identity as the place where Lord Krishna performs his pastimes with the cowherd boys and cowherd girls. And then he says and chants a beautiful prayer from Brahma Samhita. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. So, this verse is very important. This verse is from Brahma Samhita, and it is spoken by Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma, at the beginning of creation, he performed meditation and austerities, tapasya, and in these austerities and meditation, he purified himself so much that the Lord was satisfied with him, and therefore he revealed to him himself. He revealed to him everything. And when we see Krishna, when Krishna reveals himself in front of us, he's not alone. Lord Krishna means everything. His associates, his abode, his paraphernalia. So when he saw Lord Krishna, he saw all the spiritual worlds. And therefore he also saw Krishna Loka. And he saw Lord Krishna as a cowherd boy. And that's what is explained in Gopalatapani Upanishad, where Lord Brahma actually explains that, and which it is actually explained how he got the mantra, how he chanted, and how actually by using this mantra, which is actually a Gayatri mantra that is chanted by the Brahmanas, how all the words in the mantra, they contained a seed of creation. And then when Lord Brahma chanted the mantra, by this vibration he actually created the whole material world. And it's very beautiful because we can understand that the transcendental sound contains the seeds of everything, and therefore it contains the seeds of the spiritual world as well. And therefore that is why we chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this transcendental sound contains the spiritual world. So if you chant this spiritual mantra, this mantra for deliverance, without offenses and with with a good feeling, with a proper feeling, everything will be revealed to you. And when you do that, then your heart, in which Krishna is manifested, becomes a TV, in the sense, that's how it is actually described in the scriptures, and I think Srila Prabhupada describes it somewhere here in a very long purport that I'm not going to read. But he says that all these pure devotees, they have a TV in their heart, and by meditating on Lord Krishna, they can see the spiritual world. So when Brahma was composing Brahma Samhita, when he was singing all these verses, he actually composed them by what he saw. They were composed and based on his vision. And why this is important? Because every other acharya, every other pure devotee sees the spiritual abode in the same way, and it might be revealed to them a little bit differently. Why? Because God is unlimited, therefore he has many things in the spiritual world manifested in different ways. So what he shows to one person might divert from what he is showing to another person. And that's why we're going to read from Brihad Bhagavatamrita also, which has a lot of descriptions of Vaikunthas. Of course, it has a description of Vrindavan in the spiritual world, but today we're going to focus. I'm just going to remove these comments because they're like a little bit. Yep, now it's better. So sometimes people say that Brihad Bhagavatamrita is an imaginary story. Yes, in a way, and no, in a way. Because this story of Gopakumar and everything that happens with him in his life, and all the stories and philosophy that is contained in this book, is based on the vision of Sanatana Goswami, which he had in his heart. That's how he saw the spiritual world. And we can also know it's true because it's very much based on the instructions that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We will read these instructions, so the instructions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that were given to Sanatana Goswami. And when we will read those instructions, if you ever read Brihad Bhagavatamrita before that, you can see how Sanatana Goswami actually takes everything Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells him and puts it in this book and describes it in even more detail for our benefit. So actually what he speaks about in Brihad Bhagavatamrita is based on what he was told by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's actually Krishna, who came in the mood of Radharani, and who can know how the spiritual world looks like if not God himself. So that's the beauty. So to continue, we have like a few more verses and then we'll go to Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna manifests his own form in Mathura and Dwaraka. He enjoys pastimes in various ways by expanding into quadruple forms. So as Krishna, original personality of Godhead, he manifests himself only in Vrindavan. And in Mathura and Dwaraka, he expands himself as Krishna but in these quadruple forms. And these are Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And these are considered to be primary quadruple forms, from whom all other quadruple forms are manifested. They are all purely transcendental. Only in these three places, Dwaraka, Mathura, and Gokula, does the all-sporting Lord Krishna perform his endless pastimes with his personal associates. So these places are the most intimate places where God performs his pastimes. And we should be grateful to have this information, actually, because it's very rare to know so many intimate things about God, and that actually you can meditate on these things. And later on, I will also emphasize why this is so important. In the Vaikuntha planets on the spiritual sky, the Lord manifests his identity as Narayana and performs pastimes in various ways. Krishna's own form has only 2 hands, but in the form of Lord Narayan, he has 4 hands. Lord Narayan holds a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, and he is full of great opulence. The Shri, Bhu, and Nila energies serve at his lotus feet. These are the energies of actually Goddess Lakshmi, and I'm not going to go into that in detail because it's not so much important. But I just wanted to say how you can see that the description of the Lord is quite simplified. It is said that in Krishna Loka, he has a form with 2 arms and 2 arm form. But in Vaikuntha Loka, he has 4 arms. And then we have the descriptions how, I think it will be here in the following verses, how the residents there also look the same as him. But there is so much more to say about it. So to continue, although his pastimes are his only characteristic functions, by his causeless mercy he performs one activity for the fallen souls, and that is that he delivers the fallen living entities by offering them the 4 kinds of liberation: Salokya, Samipya, Sarshti, and Sarupya. Salokya means that you live on the same planet as the Lord. Sarupya means that you have the same form as the Lord. Samipya means that you can constantly associate with the Lord. And Sarshti means that you have the same opulence as the Lord. Those who attain Brahma Sayujya liberation cannot gain entrance into Vaikuntha. Their residence is outside of Vaikuntha planets, which means that if one attains just the liberation in merging into the energy of the Lord, he can only merge into Brahmajyoti, but he cannot go further into Vaikuntha planets. Outside the Vaikuntha planets is the atmosphere of the glowing effulgence, which consists of the supremely bright rays of the body of the Lord. And this we will continue next time. So I wanted to read a little bit about Vaikuntha planets. We will of course touch upon Krishna Loka, but not so much is said about Vaikunthas, and they're also very interesting. And they are more than we actually think about. So what I did find that that even though it is described how Vishnu has 4 arms and the residents there also have bluish complexion 4 arms, they look the same as Vishnu, still in Brihad Bhagavatamrita it is described that some of the residents actually assume different forms at different times with all kinds of ornaments, bodily features and ways of acting, all exceedingly attractive. So it is described, all the purports are actually Sanatana Goswami's purports. So it is described that by these different forms, this means that they can actually assume the forms of animals, they can assume the forms of birds, they can assume the forms of trees. Some devotees would show one form for some time and then change it into another. So that's quite fascinating. Some appeared as humans, some as monkeys, demigods, demons, or sages, and some bore the signs of persons initiated into behavior of the Varnashram systems. So you can see the variety of the Vaikuntha residents. Then it is described, some looked like Indra, Some looked like Chandra or other demigods. Some had 3 eyes, or 4 heads, or 4 arms, or 8, or 1,000 faces. So you can see that they can assume various forms. And there is another section which I want to read. Narada was explaining this to Gopakumar. He said, "Don't think that the flocks of animals and birds of this place, meaning Vaikuntha Loka, or the trees, creepers, bushes, grass, and other vegetation are made from earth-like ordinary creatures in the mode of ignorance. In fact, these are all personal associates of Sri Krishna, all with spiritual Satchitananda bodies. They have assumed such forms to taste the ecstasy of serving the Lord in various ways." So that's the only reason why we and they, as spirit soul, take various forms. It's always for the pleasure of the Lord. They have assumed forms with colors and shapes similar to those of the Lord they have worshipped as more dear. So this is also very important. And this is quite revealing that whatever is in your mind, in your meditation, on whichever form of the Lord you meditate in your spiritual life, that is the form you will actually gain. So, having each attained samenessness with a particular form of the Lord, they have gained the opulences of various kinds of bodies, as sages, demigods, fish, tortoise, human beings, and mystic seers. Some have become hogs, man-lions, or dwarfs, and some have 3 eyes, 4 arms, or thousands of eyes like Mahapurusha. Some have assumed bodies with thousands of faces, or the features of such deities as the sun, the moon, and the gods of air and fire. Some have 4 arms, or 8, or 12, or more, and various kinds of dress, ornaments, symbols, and other attributes. The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets have a glowing, sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. Their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features are very attractive. They are just the age of growing youth. They all have 4 hands. They are nicely decorated with pearl necklaces, with ornamental medallions, and they all appear effulgent. Some are like coral, diamonds, or white lotus fibers in complexion. On their heads and necks they have garlands, and they wear shining earrings. But there are other details in which they are described. Some Vaikuntha devotees appear as human beings because of having attained sarupya, likeness in form, which with such incarnations of the Lord as, for example, Sri Raghunath. Others appear as munis by sarupya with sage incarnations like Srila Kapiladeva, or as demigods by sarupya with Manvantara avatars like Lord Satyasena or Lord Vibhu. Others appear as rishis by sarupya with incarnations like Sri Parashurama, or a fish by sarupya with Lord Matsya, or tortoise with Lord Kurma. Some who worship Shiva or Brahma as a representative of the Supreme appear in bodies with 3 eyes. Appear in bodies with 3 eyes or 4 heads. Some appear like Indra with 1,000 eyes, like Ananta Shesha with thousands of heads, or like Surya or other demigods. Because, for example, the worshippers of the sun, some see sun as a demigod, Surya, but some see sun as Vishnu Narayan, like Surya Narayan, like Narayan in the sun. And if you worship him like that, then you will also get the same body as his form in that sense. And the only means for achieving entrance into Vaikuntha is pure exclusive love for the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Ordinary demigod worshippers are never eligible to become residents of Vaikuntha, but worshippers who regard Shiva and other demigods as non-different from Lord Vishnu achieve special Vaishnava perfection. Whoever comes to Vaikuntha realizes the very same service to the lotus feet of Krishna for which he had developed a taste by the end of his material life, and he realizes that service in full detail, with suitable dress, form, and so on, since each mood of devotion is dear to the personality of Godhead, and each gives pleasure to the devotees absorbed in it. In Vaikuntha, each devotee sees the Supreme Lord Sri Narayan in the form of a particular Lord he worships, with suitable complexion and other qualities. So thus, in Vaikuntha, each devotee cherishes the Supreme Lord in his own way. So that's very nice to know, because this confirms that the spiritual life is very much individual. So we will all, actually in our meditation, we will achieve what we meditate on. And that's different from each and every person. And therefore, in that sense, there is no hierarchy in the spiritual world, no competition and envy, only spiritual equality in a way, even though some relationships might be considered higher or lower, but everyone is satisfied in their own position. And one more verse I will read to conclude today's lecture, or reading, or commenting, or discussing. And it's very important that except by direct experience, no one can rightly understand Vaikuntha, no more than this can I accurately describe. So basically, we can only listen with faith to the descriptions of the spiritual world. But if we really want to see the spiritual world, we have to experience it ourselves. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita says how that is possible. And it is possible by chanting the mantra that was given to you by a guru. So if you achieve perfection in chanting of the mantra, and as we explained in this lecture, the mantra contains the seed of everything, and it's actually Krishna. And when we talk about Krishna, Krishna is everything, then only we can understand the spiritual world, because then we will have the experience, and this experience is manifested in the heart of each and every devotee who has developed pure love for Krishna, and therefore the pure devotee can see the spiritual world in his heart through the mantra that was given to him, which is not different from Lord Krishna. So thank you for your attention. Now I will see if maybe there is a question, except unnecessary, comments. Well, thank you for your attention that you watched. If you have any questions, you can always post them below this video. The questions pertaining to the lesson that we now heard. We will continue in the week describing Brahmajyoti. All the best and happy month of Kartik, and I wish you all the blessings. Hare Krishna.